At noon, the whole country was covered with darkness, which lasted for 3 hours. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud shout, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why did you abandon me?" Some of the people there heard him and said, "Listen, he's calling for Elijah." One of them ran up with a sponge, soaked it in cheap wine and put it on the end of a stick. Then he held it up to Jesus' lips and said, "Wait, let's see if Elijah's coming to bring him down from the cross." With a loud cry, Jesus died. The curtain hanging in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The army officer who was standing there in front of the cross saw how Jesus had died. "This man was really the Son of God," he said. Some women were there, looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of the younger James and of Joseph and Salome. They'd followed Jesus while he was in Galilee and helped him. Many other women who had come to Jerusalem were with him there also.
From him you came, helpless babe, entered our world, your glory veiled, not to be served but to serve, and give your life that we might live. This is our God, the servant's King. He calls us now to follow him, to bring our lives as a daily offering of worship to the servant's King. There in the garden of tears, my heavy load he chose to bear. His heart with sorrow was torn, yet not my will but yours, he said. This is our God, the servant's King. He calls us now to follow him, to bring our lives as a daily offering of worship to the servant King. Come see his hands and his feet, the scars that speak of sacrifice, hands that flaunt stars into space, to cruel nails surrender. This is our God, the servant's King. He calls us now to follow him, to bring our lives as a daily offering of worship to the servant King. So let us learn how to serve, and in our lives enthrone him, each other's needs to prefer, for it is Christ we're serving.
he died. Joseph of Arimathea took his body, and he and some of the women have placed it in a tomb. They say that because time was short, they would have to return on Sunday morning and wrap his body properly, because we were unprepared. We didn't have the spices we would need because we didn't believe it would happen. We believed in him. We thought he would be the one to liberate Israel, so we are still in shock back here in 32 AD. Everything happened quickly. One moment we were celebrating at table, remember how he washed our feet, and we were embarrassed because that's the kind of thing a slave does. And then there was the thing with bread and wine and talking of a new covenant, a new relationship with God. The wine being his blood and the bread being his body somehow. And then we began to break up. Judas had left. We'd gone to the Garden of Gethsemane. And remember, he called Peter and a couple of others to go with him. And you might remember waking and hearing him crying. And you and I had gone closer. And it was almost as if some struggle was going on inside him, that he was praying that this cup might pass from him. And we wondered what that meant. And he spoke about his Father's wishes being carried out. Peter and the others were asleep. Remember how he went and woke them, almost as if he wanted them to stay awake with him, almost as if he was somehow lonely and needed company. And then there were the lights, and Judas was there because he came and kissed him. And the garden was full of guards, and there was noise. They grabbed him, and they had ropes. Then something was said, and we all began to run into the night, running and hiding. Somehow, the uneasiness of the last months breaking in, remembering the sight of the Roman soldiers that night on the way to Bethany, and the picture of a crucifixion that crossed our minds then. And we ran away from the lights of the soldiers and away from him, running into our darkness and our fear, leaving him with them as terror overwhelms us. Suddenly, we no longer want to be associated with him, no longer wanting the others to know we were with him, afraid that someone will hear that we have been with him and we've been his friend. We heard that they took him to the high priest's house. John was there and Peter. I believe he was talking too much, for someone twigged by his accent he was from Galilee and therefore possibly a friend of Jesus, and it scared him, for we heard that he had denied all knowledge of him and he was cursing and swearing. Someone said that Jesus just happened to catch him in the middle of his last outburst, and all the pain and the fear and the sense of betrayal broke out in Peter, and he left in tears. Jesus was dragged across town to the Roman procurator's palace. Pilate was angry about being woken. The high priest wanted the death penalty, and only Rome can pass that sentence. Pilate sent him farther off to Herod's palace, and Herod sent him back to Pilate. But Pilate didn't want him killed. He had given Jesus the 39 lashes and dragged him back before the high priest and his people. I think that they would see how pitiful he looked. But they still wanted him killed, demanding that Pilate have him crucified. And when Pilate tried to talk to him, he wouldn't answer, almost as if he didn't know what was about to happen. Someone laughed and said something like he was a sheep going to be slaughtered. It was morning, and we were trying to get near when we heard that he was to be crucified. The guards had taken him below. A detachment would take him to the garbage dump outside the city and crucify him. They put a crossbeam on his shoulders. But you see, his back was so damaged he would collapse at every step. They grabbed a passerby and dumped the beam on his back. I remember all the time we were thinking, maybe now, maybe some show of power, he will shake himself free. He made the blind to see. He spoke and a cripple was healed. So any moment we thought, now at this point, Jesus will do something. But then we were there and it was happening. The soldiers wanted to get back to barracks. The stench out there was awful, so they did it. They stripped him naked, held him down with two others, hammered spikes through their wrists, pulled the crossbeam up on the upright, spike through both feet, and it was done. And he hung there trying to breathe, covered in blowflies. That was 9 o'clock in the morning. By 12, great clouds covered the sky. Someone said they felt earthquakes. The soldiers wanted to hurry the process up, so they smashed the legs of the other two. But when they got to Jesus, they found he was dead already. Someone had said that he used that prayer he had learned as a child before going to sleep at night. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And he died. Joseph of Arimathea asked for Jesus' body, and he and some of the women took it, and they wrapped him as best they could and put him into Joseph's own tomb. The kingdom didn't come. And we wonder now what we will do. There's a lot of embarrassment as we meet. Some of us are feeling angry. There's talk of we should have, if only. Peter is strangely silent. Some are talking about getting out of Jerusalem. The fishermen are talking about going back to fishing. You see, he died. Despite our prayers, despite his prayers, he died. Why wouldn't God let him live? Why didn't he speak up for himself? It makes no sense. Why should this good man have to die so? And we were duped, were we not? We thought he would usher in a kingdom. We had plans, and they all died on the cross. We'll go back fishing. At least some of us. There is talk of opening his tomb on Sunday morning when the Sabbath is over to wrap his body properly, and we will wait until then and maybe help the women, and then we will go back. But back to what? You see, even if he has failed, life before him, life before he came and called us was so boring and pointless. When he was with us, remember, there was always hope, always joy in impossible situations. Remember how he could somehow talk to our hearts, that his words kind of got to us at a depth that no one else had. Go back is the last thing I want to do. I can hear already the jibes of those back in Galilee, back home, who told us we were crazy to follow him. But you see, life, even with his misguided ideas, even now, it seems, was better than life without them. But it's over. And we are thinking back here in 32 AD, let's get Sunday morning out of the way. And those, who knows what we will do. But you know, something he said, wouldn't it be odd? What if we went to the tomb and he... But that's crazy talk, isn't it? Now to God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, be ascribed all the honor and glory, world without end. Amen. Sometimes in our lives, you and I go through things that are very deep and hurtful and painful. And we don't know how to deal with them, how to heal them. But they linger there in our minds and in our hearts. This morning, I would like to offer you the opportunity to take that pain, that uncertainty, that hurt that you've experienced, that fear you might have, and go to the table over there, and there are some white flowers, and place one of those flowers on the cross. Please take your time and do it prayerfully and thoughtfully. And may God bless you in this time.
is love, vast as the ocean, loving kindness as the flood. When the Prince of Life, our ransom, shed for us his precious blood. Who is love will not remember, who can cease to sing his praise? He can never be forgotten throughout his eternal days. On the mount of crucifixion, fountains open deep and wide. Through the floodgates of God's mercy flowed a vast and gracious tide. Grace and love like mighty rivers poured incessant from above, and heaven's peace and perfect justice kissed a guilty world in love. In thy truth thou dost direct me, by thy Spirit through thy word, and thy grace my need is meeting, as I trust in thee, my Lord. Of thy fullness thou art pouring thy great love and power on me, without measure full